Playman Media.
You're listening to the We Bear Witness podcast, where we discuss theological truths and cultural influences. Our podcasts are available via Google, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and many other podcast platforms. We hope you subscribe and enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, thank you for listening to We Bear Witness. Pastor Forrest and I are thinking about
what we're thinking about is that thing groups behind your head. That's what we're thinking about. It's bothering me.
That's bothering him, and I refuse to change it. We want to just share with you a couple of things we're thinking about when it comes to 90s youth groups. We'd love to hear your stories. If you were a part of a youth group in the 90s, what was the craziest things that ever happened to you? We have friends that do several podcasts dedicated to just this, but we have a couple stories of our own. I'll go first. This isn't a story as much as it is something I remember happening, and then I was involved in it one year, and I remember what happened exactly. But I don't know if you remember this, but in the 90s at church, in order to fundraise, what we would do is we would have teenage slave auctions. We would have the students march out onto the stage. And what would occur is, and this happens several times, you'd have maybe 100 people out there auctioning, putting out bids, bidding on children. And I remember specifically,
this concept definitely aged like bad milk.
It's aged very poorly.
Very poorly.
Well, it aged poorly because there was too many similarities to other types of slave auctions that we rightfully are very, very far away from and should never visit again. And when we did this, I mean, I'm pretty positive we called them slave auctions.
No, they were legit.
I'm pretty sure we called them that.
They were called a slave auction.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is 94, 95, maybe even 96. And so I remember one time specifically where the guy in front of me was this big machismo kind of guy. And he was huge, and he got like a high bid. He got a really high bid. And then the guy after him, before I got up, was very, very small and like kind of a weakling, younger kid. And he got a very low bid, and then he started crying. And so I was after him. This is all real. I was after him. And I know this is hard to fathom, but I was one of the pudgier teens. And I don't think they might have thought that I had the best work ethic, even though I was strong, at least, kind of like pudgy strong. But I went in and I
put my T-shirt with that on it, don't you?
I'm there, but here's the worst part: I had my grandmother start the bid at like an inappropriately high level, and like first of all, it was just quiet for a while. Like the auctioneer left it a little too quiet, and then I remember like my mom getting in on it. I'm like, at this point, literally, there's only two people that have bid anything on me are blood relatives. The most encouraging, Eunice and Lois in my life have bet on me. And then I remember one dude, like out of just sheer pity, throwing up like $100 more. It was just like, yeah. And I ended up getting this insanely high bid, all stemming from pity, not from strength, which actually made me want to cry like that second guy because of just how humiliating the situation was. And I remember like every girl I liked was like next in line, and you had like older couples just like auctioning off girls and boys to work at people's houses, to do manual labor at people's houses like a Saturday afternoon.
The manual labor
problems
part,
there at all.
The manual labor part isn't even the troubling part of this whole story.
No,
that's the least
the
troubling
auctioning
part.
People by visual only, like just visually looking at them and going $50, and we thought that. It's not problematic.
No,
all justified because it went to like that. That's mine. Top that one.
We've got a fundraiser where we're going to crush kids' hopes and dreams. We're going to reenact antebellum South slavery. What could be wrong? Youth chain gang. Come on. And the sad thing is, I remember this was not just your church. This was a widespread thing because just I remember it being something.
Could you imagine pitching that like today? 2024 and just being like, we should have a slave auction. It would be immediately shut down just because of the mere name, the mere association. Done. We are that aware
as
now.
Pastors, it is our role to shut that down.
Yeah,
if anyone, I'm just saying, if somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I've got this great idea for a fundraiser,
let's auction off kids.
Let's do a Indentured persons auction. No. Let's sell donuts, guys. Come on.
We should auction off the elderly to tell stories to children.
Let's just not auction people. Let's just
move away from it.
Yeah.
It's not a good idea.
Yeah.
I immediately take that back, that suggestion.
Yeah.
But
all the jokes I could think of on this, I'm not going to say because this is being recorded. What
did Nate Bargatze say about 80s and 90s Christianity? He's like, that's the most Christianity you can get. Like, that's the most Christian you can get is 80s and 90s Christian. So there's just a lot of things we didn't know. I mean, down to the disgusting youth games to just really just a lot happened that was without guidance or parental supervision. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's mine. So yours is the slave auction. Mine isn't so much a one event fundraiser. Mine was more of a, when I look back in my mind as a youth, the people running youth group were so old, they did not understand youth hormones or emotions or physical yearnings, attractions, all of those things. In my mind, these people were about 93 years old with a walker. I am now running the youth group in my 40s and realize these people were in their 40s. Mm-hmm. I can remember being a youth. It has not been that long ago. And yet there was an utter just ignoring completely of the fact that if you take 50 teenagers, you put them in the dark with boys and girls, and you say, here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to play a fun game of hide and go seek. You're going to scatter all over the church campus, which is about 2.5 city blocks worth over multiple buildings in the dark with couples running around and couples being formed every minute. And we're just going to play hide and go seek. I'll just go ahead and tell you, that's the longest game you'll ever play because there's a whole lot of people not wanting to be found. And, and this was not once. This was not like one time somebody had a bad idea, because bad ideas happen. I get it.
I think a lot of leaders did not think, or I would say this, did not remember how they were at 13 or 14.
No,
this is a kind of a life lesson of like,
there's no way they remember.
Here's how they set up youth rooms in the 90s, like black lights, like futons and like mood music, like everything had a stereo and like a 6-disc CD changer. And I mean, if you were ever unattended, there was only opportunity. And so I think there's just a concept of don't trust these kids, these teenagers. Stop. What are you doing? Just because it's at church or on church grounds doesn't mean everything that they're going through libido wise is like getting kicked out the door. They're the least sanctified people alive. Here's the point too. They probably were just abiding in the fact that they had asked Jesus into their heart at 8 and got baptized. So they couldn't possibly be thinking about those things. So it's all attached to all this other stuff. We can do mass, hide and seek. It's fine. Why can't we find Bobby and Carol?
Yeah.
They're 80 feet away from you. That's probably why.
I've actually figured out, we try and diagnose why it is that the charismatic churches have grown so large in the last decade. And I figured out it's because there was a lot of Pentecostal things happening at these youth group blockheads. Lots of laying on of hands and speaking in tongues.
I'm going to let you have all that one since I bore slave auction. Anyway, those are our 90s youth group stories. Be in tune for many more, I'm sure, as they come to us. Thank you guys for listening to We Bear Witness. Have a great midweek and forgive this whole thing. God bless.